Welcome to the video. Thank you for clicking on the link. I've got this dope little gas bike to detail here for you. This is a Kent Bayside beach cruiser gas bike. There's a lot of thought that went into making this bike, actually, and I wanted to put together this video so that you guys can know exactly why I built the bike the way that I did. I've been building these little gas bikes for quite a while, for years now, for about 10 years or so. And so I wanted to tell you about this bike. So the reason why I selected this specific frame, this specific bike, one is because I just love the look of it. I really wanted to give this bike that classic motorcycle kind of a look, really go with that retro style. And this frame just really has that, I feel like. But the more importantly for this frame, the reason why I selected it is because it's a steel frame. This is not an aluminum frame bike. That's very important when you put these little engines on there. They don't have a ton of torque, but it's enough to where, you know, you really want to have a solid frame that you're working with these bikes. And so this is a nice steel frame. Now, I left the fenders on here, but we didn't just leave the fenders on here. We made sure that they're secured on here nice and well for you. That can be an issue with these bikes. If somebody builds these and they don't know how to secure the frame on the fenders on there, that can be an issue. So I want to show you exactly how we did this. All right. So I actually had my friend Billy help me with this. He's a motorcycle mechanic, and so this bike wasn't just built by anybody. So what he did is he actually put, if you can see this, he cut that nice clean line there to make room for the chain. Okay, we got to make room for this chain. A lot of times what people do is they cut off the fender closer up here, and they sometimes lose this mount. And if you cut it here, you certainly lose this mount here. Okay, and so what we did is we made sure that we were able to secure the or maintain the mounts for these fenders the way that they're supposed to be on that bike, while making clearance for that chain, so they're going to stay on there nice and securely for you. Okay, I just wanted to point that out, the detail that went into that. Another reason why I selected this bike is because of the brakes. So this has U brakes on it. A lot of the bikes that are out there, especially if you're looking at bikes that are really cheap, kind of in that $300 or $400 range, a lot of times they just get bikes that have the coaster brakes. Not all of them, but a lot of them that are out there will just have the coaster brakes on here. The first bike that I had, see, this has the U brakes on it, as you can see. The first bike that I had, first motorized bike, I bought it off of some guy online, and it was just a single speed coaster brake. I think it was a Huffy Cranbrook or something like that is what he had built it on, and the coaster brakes failed in a week. I had to upgrade the brakes to something similar to what's on this. These are actually really nice brakes. They came with the bike, so that's always really good, because the mounts and all of that are proper on there. And while we're talking about the brakes, we put on a dual brake lever here. Okay, I wanted to do this with this bike because that's going to give you maximum stopping power. If you see, it pulls both of those brakes at the same time, the front and the back. That's going to give you maximum stopping power every time you pull the brakes on this bike. That's obviously really important. If you're going to put an engine on a bike, you got to make sure that you can stop it, right? Now, having springs on this seat here actually makes it for a lot more comfortable ride. Those springs help a lot because it's a hardtail. It's a beach cruiser, doesn't have any suspension. So having some springs on there really helps you when you're kind of going over bumps and stuff like that, obviously. And then let's face it, that brown saddle on this bike just looks great. It's just such a great accent piece on this bike, I feel like. Now this bike also has gears. The gears here, if you can see, it's a 7-speed, okay? And the gears here, it's a nice Shimano. You can see it's a Shimano derailleur, all right? Came with the bike, but I really wanted to make sure that this bike had gears for you because, like I said, I've ridden ones that don't. I've actually made ones that don't, and I tell you, you know the difference big time. Yes, having an engine helps, but it's really good to have gears for when you're having to go up hills or even just starting the bike. Being able to start the bike and put this bike in like first gear or third gear or something like that, and you're starting out, it just makes getting these engines going a lot easier, especially hill climbing. I put together a little ride-along video for you guys that you're going to get to see in just a minute if you watch to the end of this video, and I go up a pretty gnarly hill on that, and the entire time I'm going up that hill, I'm sitting down. You can't see me in the video, but it's just know if you see that part, I'm sitting down. Now, one last thing about the bike before I move on to the accessories is those are 29-inch wheels, okay? That makes this bike great for the beach. We put this together with Long Beach in mind. I want people riding on the beach with this bike. And I've actually got a video on here so you can see how well it rides on the hard sand. This cuts through that hard sand like butter. I actually got a comment, a message from somebody, from a lady just the other day asking me how in the world this thing is able to go on the beach without the fat tires on it. And part of it is because it's got those 29-inch wheels, also having that engine and that sprocket, which I'll get to in a little bit. That upgraded nice big sprocket back there really makes this so that it's a pleasure to ride on the beach. Now, let's talk about the accessories really quick. So I've got this nice bullet headlight on here, and you see it's got 7 LED lights in this. Now that's super important when you're riding a motorized two-wheeled vehicle, especially like if anybody watching this has their motorcycle endorsement, they'll know that they teach you to have your lights on. In fact, on a motorcycle, they turn on automatically, day or night. And so I recommend that on this. If you're riding this around, just make sure your lights are on day or night. Make sure that you're more visible. And I made sure you had nice bright lights on here to help you when you're driving around at night. Now the tail light, this is actually pretty cool. So it's a nice bright tail light, but you see here, you've got your remote for it. So this tail light has blinkers. And you hear that? So you can hear if you left your lights on, okay? And if you want to just turn it back to the tail light, you push that one, and there you go. All right, nice, simple, easy to use, but that's also an important thing, you know, signaling traffic, because you can keep up with traffic on like back roads and stuff like that with this bike. Signaling traffic is important. Make sure that you're doing that. Another thing that we put on this bike is a phone holder. Nowadays, GPS is super important, right? You got to have it. So to demonstrate how well this phone holder works, actually the ride-along video that's at the end of this video, I use that phone holder to video the entire ride, okay? And so you'll get to see firsthand exactly how well it holds a phone if you stay to the end of the video. Now let's talk about this engine, all right? So this is a 49cc engine. Now, yes, you can get these with larger engines, but to be street legal, you have to have under 50 cc's, okay? Now, people talk about that with these bikes, whether or not the cops will mess with you. I've been riding these for years. The only time a cop, and I've ridden them in cities, I've ridden them out here at the beach. The only time a cop has ever, I live by the police station in town and ride by it every time I rode by it to get here. The only time I've ever been messed with by a cop with one of these bikes is when I was working on it on a road, driving up and down the same road, and I didn't have a muffler, and somebody called the cops on me. And obviously, you know, they were still super nice. The cops were nice. The lady was not very happy with me, but the cops were nice. And the only thing that they cared about was how big that engine was. And so that's been my experience with it. But I wanted to make sure that if the cops do ever mess with you, if you ever have to talk to them, you can honestly say, yes, officer, that is a 49cc engine. Okay, and I've done some things with the bike to make sure that that's enough power for you too, okay, so that you're not going to be missing it. Now, one important thing with this engine is how it's mounted, okay? So we've got the heavy-duty mounts on there, okay? That's a heavy-duty mounting bracket, and we've put that rubber down to help with the vibrations a little bit. Also, so there's people mount these engines quite a few ways. The first bike that I got from some guy online, he had the T mounting bracket on here, and the T mounting bracket, you actually have to drill through the frame in order to mount it on there. After riding that bike about 3 or 4 months, it was my commuter bike. It was how I got to and from work. The frame cracked in half. So it's really important because these are high vibration motors, to know how to mount this engine on here. So we mounted it so that you've got these nice rubber bushings on there, so it's not putting stress on your frame. We've mounted this engine, we've built this so that this machine should last you quite a while if you take good care of it. Now the carburetor, this is the stock carburetor that came with it. But once again, I had a motorcycle mechanic help me with this, and it's wonderful having people know what they're doing, help you with building things like this, because he had the brilliant idea of putting a couple little extra holes in that cap there. And I tell you what, that's made this engine run so much better. You don't even hardly have to choke it to get it started. You just go. And once you've been riding it for a minute, it's a pleasure. I've had, and speaking of that, I've probably done a couple of miles on this bike now. I'm only putting in enough miles on it to help break it in. These engines aren't fully broken in until you've done 2 full gas tanks. That's the general consensus. I've done approximately 1 gas tank on this, so this is a brand new bike for you guys. Now the chain here, the drive chain, we've actually got a heavy duty 415 motorized bike drive chain with the chain tensioner that's got the 4 bolts on it and not just the 2. That actually makes it much more secure on here. And I do like these chain tensioners. There's ones that you can mount to this right here that work off of a spring, and I just like these. I find them to be really reliable, and you can adjust the tension of your chain by sliding this and by moving that up and down. I found that, you know, over time, these just work really well, and they're really inexpensive if you ever want to change them out. Now, the last but certainly not least here, what I want to talk about is this sprocket. This sprocket is really kind of what makes this bike what it is. If I to really put it out there, like, this sprocket is kind of why I'm showing you how you can mount it here. These sprockets that come with these engines, come with these kits, are just a nightmare. The stock ones that come with them are a nightmare. They just have to sandwich to your spokes. And if you see here, this is mounted with bolts there, okay? So that just bolts on. It's measured out for this hub, and it just bolts on. So if you ever have to do maintenance, or if you ever want to change out that back wheel, it's going to make it so much easier. You're going to love me if you ever have to do anything with that back wheel. The other thing that really what makes this sprocket so nice is that's the 44 tooth one. That's the big one. So this bike has really been made with Long Beach in mind. That sprocket just makes it cut through the sand like nobody's business. And then also, like I said on that ride along video you guys are going to see in just a minute, I go up some crazy gnarly hill and I'm sitting down the whole time. The combination of that sprocket and having gears on this bike, this 49cc engine got me up this gnarly hill sitting down. And it's a hill that if you're riding it on a bike, like I said, you would be walking up that hill. So that's what I got for you guys today. This is the Kent Bayside Beach Cruiser gas bike made by Revolution Motorbikes. Lots of thought, lots of attention has gone into this bike to make sure that it's a machine that runs well for you and that's going to last you if you take good care of it. Anyway, I got a little ride along video here for you guys. Enjoy the ride.